What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. We're back to a more regular schedule for FPL at the moment, so we're back with a community Q&A. I put out a tweet and a message on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk itself to ask for your questions, and I've got them in, and I'm going to go through them one by one. We've got a total of 5 questions today. So the first one was from Theodosios. I think I've pronounced that right. Can David or Bernardo Silva be an alternative to Sterling and De Bruyne? So I think, first of all, if you're considering this, obviously you've got to set your expectations. You don't want to be doing this for cover. There's a reason that kind of Sterling and De Bruyne generally are priced higher, although the points so far may not reflect that so much. But you'd expect over the course of a season for them to play more minutes and to score more points overall. But to be fair, both David and Bernardo Silva have probably gone under the radar a little bit, especially David Silva. So if you look at total points, De Bruyne's on 97 for the season, Sterling's on 81. David Silva's only 2 behind on 79. Bernardo Silva a little bit further behind on 65. And obviously you've got a price difference to take into account there. David Silva does show up as a knock, so we'll have to see what Pep Guardiola says about that. But he's played the last 4 games. Bernardo Silva started the last 6, or 6 of the last 8, I should say. And I think in general you'd probably expect more rotation from these two. But that's probably a little bit more palatable because they're cheaper. Obviously, if De Bruyne or Sterling get rotated, that's really frustrating. With these two, because they're kind of 7.6 million for David Silva and 7.9 for Bernardo Silva, you might be able to take that on the chin a little bit, especially if you've got a good bench to back you up. So upcoming fixtures aren't fantastic. Arsenal away, Leicester at home, Wolves away. And then it gets a bit easier. So Sheffield United at home, Everton at home, Villa away, and Palace at home. So I know a lot of people have kind of already looked to or have offloaded De Bruyne and Sterling. So perhaps when those fixtures ease up a little bit, you might want to bring one of these two in instead. Probably a little bit easier to fit in. And especially David Silva has been doing really well this season. It is his final year, so obviously you're going to want to go with his head held high. Not that he needs to do much more for Man City for that to happen. But I think it depends really what you want from these players. If you want a player with explosiveness that you can captain, or that you're probably more confident in captaining, I think you've still got to look to De Bruyne or Sterling. But if you just want a Man City player to tick over for these fixtures, who's cheap enough to get in, and you've got other captaincy options, then I think David Silva and Bernardo Silva, and probably David Silva would be my favourite at the moment. Could definitely be worth replacing in your squad. Next up, Nikhil on Twitter asked, who are the best Pope replacements? So, as always, the key question has to be, is it worth getting rid of him right now? Yes, he's been frustrating over the last 3 game weeks. I know that as a Nick Pope owner, I've had him for the whole season so far. But it's Newcastle at home up next and then Bournemouth away. They might not be the worst 2 fixtures to hold him. Perhaps you've got a different transfer you could do instead, or maybe you just want to reassess after a couple more fixtures. Saint Maximin for Newcastle looks like he might be out for up to a month, so he's going to miss that fixture. That's going to maybe hurt Newcastle's attacking potential, so that could help Burnley. And obviously Bournemouth as well, especially over the last couple of games, have looked pretty poor themselves. So I don't think it's necessarily the worst decision to keep him, but obviously if you're dead set on getting rid of him, then best replacements look to be Guaita at Palace. They look pretty defensively sound no matter how many injuries they get. Obviously, that's within reason. If they get kind of 2 or 3 more injuries, that could be a problem. But Hodgson has them well organised. I think with Kelly's coming in, he's done well. Obviously, Cahill's back as well. So defensively, I think they're looking pretty sound. And they have the fixtures. If you look on the season ticker over the next 10 fixtures, and you kind of want to think long-term with goalkeeper transfers, probably not something you want to be doing each week. And Crystal Palace are right at the top. So worth looking at him. Other goalkeeper options, there's not too many that stand out to me right now. Gazzaniga at Spurs, but I just think for 0.5 million you can get Aurier. So he's 5 million instead with attacking potential. And less of a headache when Lloris finally does come back, because Gazzaniga's not going to be an option then. And I think Aurier, in the past for Spurs, we've kind of wanted a fullback that's kind of nailed on. We've not had it, but right now it does look like Aurier is going to start week in, week out. So for 5 million, I think he's a slightly better option. Henderson, I think the problem with that is Sheffield United is suddenly not looking like a good idea for a double up on defence, and everyone, pretty much everyone anyway, owns Lundstram because he was so cheap at the start. So I'm not sure you'd want to pair Henderson with him. Good short-term fixtures, maybe not so good long-term. So potential option there, but I think if you've got Lundstram, I would just stick with John himself. And then if you're trying to save money, so obviously Guaita has gone up in price now. I think he's 5.1 million. If you are trying to save a bit of money, then fixture-wise, you could be looking at Bournemouth. They got a pretty nice run over the next 10. So you could look at Ramsdale at 4.6 million. That's if you trust the Bournemouth defence. They've got their own injury issues as well. So not necessarily someone I'd be targeting right now. And ultimately, because of that, if you don't want to spend the money on Guaita, I actually think it's probably worth keeping Nick Pope for a couple more. And then having a think then if it's worth getting rid of him. But we know that cheap goalkeepers have these ups and downs throughout the season. They're cheap for a reason. We shouldn't be expecting points week in, week out. And I think he does have the fixtures that you could maybe hold him. But Guaita looks the best option, but he's quite expensive at the moment. So Reese on Twitter asks, who are the best differential forwards that aren't Ings or Jimenez? And to be honest, I think when you're talking about differentials, at least for forwards, you really are onto slim pickings, because Vardy, Abraham, Rashford, Aubameyang, Kane, Jimenez, Pukki, and even Ings on just over 11%, and Aguero, who's been injured for a few weeks, are all owned by more than 10%. So it doesn't leave you too many other options. So let's talk about some of them that are less than 10%. Firmino, 9.2%. I think you've got a really nice fixture this week. Watford at home could be a really good option, but the problem is it's then a tougher run of fixtures, plus a blank in game week 18. So probably not one to be bringing in if you don't already own him. I've already just spoken about Palace fixtures, so you could look at IU, 5.1 million, so very affordable to fit in. Could be an 8th attacker option maybe, or just someone to enable big hitters elsewhere. Only 5 shots inside the box in the last 4. The question that you got to ask yourself there is, are you going to back the Palace attack? And if you get AU, are you really actually just kind of covering Zaha? Zaha's probably the one you want, even if he's not been performing that great over the last 2 game weeks. So IU is a cheap option, but I wouldn't be too confident in returns, but I guess you've got to kind of temper expectations for that price. Mousse, obviously a similar price as well. Only 3 shots in the box in the last 4 game weeks. I do just wonder if his run's coming to a little bit of an end. Obviously had that slight injury problem and did come back last game week, didn't play 90 minutes, but got up to close to 70. So again, in the short term, Sheffield United's fixtures are quite good. So over the next kind of 3 or 4 game weeks, Mousse could be a really nice option. He's under 10% owned. But long term, I'm not sure if he's one that I would want. And I think that's kind of the problem with most of these forwards. They don't really have the combination of form, fixtures, and low ownership. So Jesus, 3.4% owned. Man City, he's going to score goals. He's just come off the back of a hat-trick in the Champions League. But Aguero might be back soon. As soon as he's back, Jesus then is a very expensive rotation worry. So again, if you've not already got him, is now the time to bring him in. I'm not so sure about that. Jota is the one I probably like the most. He's 3.1% owned, just over 6 million cost. And the next 2 fixtures are okay. Spurs at home is decent enough. Then Norwich away. And the key thing about that Norwich away fixture is it's in game week 18 when Liverpool are going to blank. So for that kind of price, and the underlying stats are pretty good for him as well. So 11 shots in the box, 4 chances created over the last 4. And I think for that kind of price, he actually looks on fire. He's also just kind of not established himself, but kind of put himself back on the radar this week with 2 goals against Brighton. And it was around this time last year that he kind of kicked off as well. We all had him in our teams, or a lot of us did, at the start of last season, didn't really do anything. In the second half of the season, he was immense, and that could be about to happen again. After those 2 fixtures, Spurs and Norwich, again, the fixtures are a bit trickier for Wolves, Man City and Liverpool. But again, for that kind of price, you've probably got to temper your expectations. So I really like Jota. I think ownership, next 2 fixtures, Norwich away looks good in 18. Ultimately, though, it's pretty slim pickings. And I think one thing to consider with differentials is someone like Rashford's 23.5% owned. But that does mean that 3 out of every 4 managers don't own him. Ings, 11.5%. Maybe Reece already owns him, but if you don't, he could be an option. 7 goals in the last 9 games. So there's a lot of differentials to pick from. I'm just not sure if there's too many good ones. So Dan the man in a pan did ask a pretty scary question on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk about Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I guess this also goes for Robertson as well. So found myself looking at team setups that don't include Alexander-Arnold after this game week. Should I tell myself off for considering this? And don't tell yourself off. I've considered this too. I've seen a lot of conversation around Liverpool players because of the blanking game week 18, and their fixtures do toughen up a little bit. So obviously Watford at home this week, absolutely must keep all Liverpool players for this, barring any injuries that we hear about, because it's a great fixture. They're probably going to win this to 0 and score plenty of goals along the way. After that, it's a blank, so no game in game week 18. Obviously, if Trent does get a yellow card in the Watford game as well, he's also going to miss Leicester away, which is tough enough anyway. I can see Vardy scoring in that. Wolves at home again. I think Leicester and Wolves probably 2 of the toughest team outside of the traditional top 6. Obviously Leicester on absolute fire this year so far. But Wolves again, Jimenez and Jota I've just spoken about could cause Liverpool defence problems. So I'm not too sure about many clean sheets after the Watford game for the first 3 fixtures. Then it's Sheffield United at home. So the one thing I'm supposed to say about that Wolves and Sheffield United games is they're both at Anfield. Then it's Spurs away, Man United at home. So I'm not sure how many clean sheets they've got on the horizon. Obviously, they've not been doing too well this season for them anyway. They have got the attack returns, but it is a lot of money to spend. So I think for me, team value plays a big part. I've seen discussion on the site about how people are going to take out Trent Alexander-Arnold and then they've got a lot of money to spend up front in their kind of front eight. And it's basically going to give them a headache every week. That's not the case for me. For example, if I sell Trent, it gives me a good attacking 7. I still don't have the money to kind of get that 8th additional big hitter. So I'm looking at doing it. I think because of the fixture run, and if he gets the yellow card, it's almost a dead cert for me. But even if he doesn't, because of the fixture run and the fact they're not keeping clean sheets at the moment, I'm probably going to look to offload. Obviously, they will have a double game week at some point because of the blank in game week 18. And I will for sure want a Liverpool defender at that point. But that could be 6-7 game weeks down the line, in which case I can kind of work my transfers to maybe bring him back in. So I don't think you should tell yourself off for considering it. I think if you've got the team value to keep him and have a front 7 that you're happy with, then you should do that. But otherwise, yeah, if there's other options out there, perhaps Aurier with Spurs good fixtures at 5 million could be pretty attacking as well. Then sell him if you think that's what's best for your team. So no money on the site asks, Villa fixtures are about as good as it gets. Grealish is an interesting option, but they can't see them putting in their midfield because of the players they already own, which is fair enough. And our Villa defenders worth a punt. So looking at the kind of mentioned fixtures, Sheffield United away could be a tricky one to keep a clean sheet in, but attacking returns potential there, given the amount of goals Sheffield United have conceded recently. Then Southampton at home and Norwich at home. So there are the two fixtures I think that people are really looking at. And then even the next 2 away games aren't that bad. Watford away and Burnley away. So 5 quite nice fixtures there. Grealish himself, so I appreciate not everyone's going to be able to fit him in because there's loads of good midfield options. But he's had 10 shots inside the box in the last 4 game weeks. That's only beaten by Jesus, Jota, Jimenez and Vardy. So that makes him the highest, along with Pulisic, midfielder for shots in the box, which is pretty decent, especially with these fixtures coming up. And he's done that against pretty tough teams as well. Villa haven't had the easiest fixture run over the last 4. And I think at his current price, he's probably the best option in that bracket. Now, obviously, yes, there's Maddison, De Bruyne, Mane, Son and Ali that everyone's trying to fit in. But if you need a bit of an enabler in midfield, I think Grealish is a really nice option. I don't think he's a must-have. You don't have to rush to get him in. But given those fixtures, 6.1 million, I think he is. Very good option. The problem with the defence is Mings went off with a hamstring injury in the last game. We don't yet know how long he's going to be out for. There's reports that it could be up until the new year, which at this point is only kind of 18, 19 days away. But in terms of game weeks, that's kind of 4 or 5 game weeks that he's potentially going to miss out from. So that would worry me. You got Gilbert, the right back, pretty attacking, but then he misses random game weeks. Target picked up a knock in the last game. Will he be okay? I did actually quite like him when I watched him in the last game that Villa played. Quite attacking on some set pieces as well. But I just think ultimately, if Mings is out, and I'm worried about knocks and potential rotation from the fullbacks, I would probably avoid defence. If Mings' injury isn't too bad and Target's fine, then he'd be someone I look at. But Grealish is a great option if you need an attacker. Defence, I wouldn't be in a rush to go there. That's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you're new to Fantasy Football Scout. There's loads of content coming all week. So you got Sky videos, Scoutcast, Sam Says, Lee versus Sam, these Q&As, team news, captaincy, so much FPL content. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And leave a comment below if you've got any other questions or comments on what's been answered. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.